Hello, human peoples. You're listening to the podcast network of Gamefully Unemployed. To support us and gain access to great exclusive podcasts like Fox Mulder is a Maniac, Tom and Jeff Watch Batman, Star Trek The Next Futurama, and our latest show, Spiel Boys, head over to patreon.com/gamefullyunemployed. We do game streaming, movie nights with our patrons every Friday night, and you can even commission your own podcast about anything you want. Literally anything, within reason, and we have to do it. You are quite frankly out of excuses not to go visit patreon.com/gamefullyunemployed. That's patreon.com/GAMEFULLY unemployed, which is spelled like it sounds.
Mustache and ghost.
Mustache feeling.
Hey, everybody.
Hello, everyone.
My name is David Bell.
My name is Tom Ryman.
And we just watched A Haunting in Venice. Losing to the Nun at the box office.
Sure.
Yeah, I guess.
Hercule Poirot, I've found something. I've looked at it from every which way. I am the smartest person I ever met, and I can't figure it out, so I came to the second.
You are up to something, my friend.
I've seen a million of these so-called psychics, each one a fake.
I do not believe in psychics.
Come with me to a seance. Spot the con, I can't.
Detective, you are here to discredit me, but I can talk to the dead.
I'd give all I have to hear my daughter's voice.
If someone wants to be heard, we are here. Listening.
Why wouldn't it?
Yeah, why wouldn't it?
Why wouldn't it?
Yeah. Tom, how you doing?
I'm doing okay. How about yourself?
I'm all right. I'm a little not low energy. I'm a little like, my brain's a little weird because I've been playing a lot of
Baldur's Gate, yeah.
I got Hana into it, and now we're just two quiet people playing Baldur's Gate. But this isn't about Baldur's Gate. This is about A Haunting in Venice.
It is.
This is the third. Is this the third one?
This is the third Poirot film starring Kenneth Branagh.
Yeah, and this one, I think because of the strike, it's just sort of snuck up. But this is clearly like one that they want it to be like on streaming by Halloween. I'm getting that vibe, although it's kind of late. I don't know what their plan is, but it's spooky. It's a spooky one.
It's a little bit of
It's Agatha Christie. Yeah. It's the first movie to adapt this story.
Really?
Yeah, which according to IMDb trivia did not take place in Venice originally. It's called Halloween Party in the actual story.
I see. Okay.
Yeah, that's interesting to me because I was like, they gave it such a the Venice is right there in the name. It feels like he really I'm curious what the story is because it feels like Venice is a big part of this movie. At least it's part of the movie's personality. Like people die in the water
in the canals. Yeah, I mean, it seems like he's taking the character and making his own sort of storyline for the character.
Yeah,
because Poirot's in the stories isn't quite as, at least from the ones that I'm most familiar with, he's not quite as jaded and haunted as Branagh's version of Poirot.
Yeah, he's looking at Knives Out and he's like, I can have one of those too. I think he's right. This has got Michelle Yeoh.
It's very different from Knives Out.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Yeah, it's Tina Fey's in here. Mm-hmm. You got Christian Grey, whatever his actual name is.
Jamie Dornan.
Yeah. A bunch of people. Kelly Riley, I believe her name is.
Kelly Riley from Sherlock Holmes. Yeah.
Yeah, that's where I knew her. How'd you like this movie?
I liked it. I think this is my favorite of the Branagh Poirot ones so far.
I think so too.
Yeah. I really liked the direction in it.
Yes,
he does. I figured out part of the mystery because of his direction.
Oh, that's cool.
I figured out. I mean, spoilers, but we're going to spoil the movie. I figured out Poirot was drugged because he switches to Dutch angles, weird zooms, etc. right after Poirot drinks that tea.
Right. I came into this thinking a few things. I knew it wasn't going to be supernatural.
Right, because none of the stories are. They're about it's like the supernatural in Sherlock Holmes. It's always somebody pulling some trick. It's like Scooby-Doo
Right.
kind of, but it's always a little creepy in these stories. Where it's just, I don't know. There was something about it. I remember there's a Sherlock Holmes story where they think it's like supernatural, but the actual solution is somebody's been sending a snake down like the little chime rope that you pull to like signal the servants. And that one like freaked me out. And like the Hound of the Baskervilles is just like a painted dog, but it's like creepy and weird. Like they're doing Scooby-Doo, but in a weird way. And so I figured this was going to be that, you know?
Yeah, it's gothic horror because it's still horror because people are dying.
Yeah. It's just there's not a ghost, probably.
Right. So I didn't really it's weirdly enough, I didn't think about it because I was like, yeah, I'm sure there's some reason. And I didn't think about it too much. It also does a good misdirect, I would argue. So Michelle Yeoh is the one who dies. And I kind of saw that one coming.
He's been doing that with these. Like he always picks a pretty high profile or at least a very visible famous person to be the victim.
Yes.
Like, I mean, obviously in Murder on the Orient Express, it's Johnny Depp. And if you know the solution to that film, it makes total the idea is that everybody on a train has a reason to murder him because he's a scumbag.
Right.
And then Death on the Nile, you know, next to Brana, the most famous person in that movie is Gal Gadot, and she's the murder victim.
And Michelle Yeoh is
pretty hot right now, and she's the murder victim, or at least the first victim we see the first body that drops in the movie that we see. There is a person who died a year before the events of the film that they're actually trying to solve the death of.
Yeah, so it's very like that like there's a lot of things where he knows, like, you know, a lot of people are. The point of a murder mystery, of course, is you're challenging people to figure it out, right? So it's not weird to sit there and try to figure it out.
No, that's the fun of it. That's what you're supposed to do.
Right. And so whenever we talk about these, I feel like we have to talk about, like, when did we figure it out or did we figure it out, right? My first thing was the moment I saw Tina Fey, I was like, she did it. I was wrong. But I was going by the rules of movie making, which is if you have a killer in your movie, like a detective movie or whatever, for the most part, unless you're making the movie Seven, which was really cool about that movie, for the most part, in the first act, you probably have met the murderer, right? Like, that's just how it works.
And that's a beautiful thing that Agatha Christie does to get around that. And I think Brana knows that because he's made all of these ensemble films where, like, he casts each suspect as an actor that you could look at by the way that you're deducing it, like just by the rules of movie making, and be like, well, that could be that's the killer.
Right. And it's not just that. And he does this on purpose. And there's motifs throughout. And I flagged them. One was honey, and that turned out to matter.
Honey and bees,
Yep. The other was apples. It's honey and apples. And what Tina Fey is, one of her first conversations, she says, like, oh yeah, I don't eat anything but apples till dinner. And she just says that and it's before the apple motif. And the moment she said that, I was like, well, that's information. Like, that's a clue, right? Like, a character saying that is such a weird thing. So I was like, okay, she's up to something. She's probably done it. But what he very smartly did was, she is up to something. It's not the murder. And so they make her and other people very sus, as the kids say. And like,
that's classic Agatha Christie. Like, everybody,
they
do this in Gosford Park too, where it's like, every suspect is kind of not weird, but like every suspect is kind of a broken person that's doing something at least a little bit crooked or shady, because they're all murder suspects. They're all like in a desperate part of their lives. So like, each person has a motive, and each person, even if so it's like it's helpful for misdirects because they're acting suspicious, and then you learn, oh, you're acting suspicious for this reason, but not because you're the murderer. Like, it's baked into almost every story she writes.
Oh yeah, and the secret is like the good thing is like the apple thing isn't suspicious.
No,
it's just
a
like,
motif
you need
to get you thinking.
Yeah, you need.
Yeah.
Weird exposition to like send you off. Like, Scream did this weirdly well at times too. Like, it's the idea of people acting kind of weird, or like someone gives up information about themselves that you're like, why would they say that if that wasn't going to set up some exposition or explanation later? And then like the fact that Tina Fey doesn't eat anything but apples doesn't actually matter. And you're like, oh, that was just like a thing about her that they have her say, because it does seem like they're setting something up. it was very metagame where
to a degree, I think it is yeah. I think he's also used. I mean, because when it clicks for him, it's because he sees the different letters form the word apple in the note that he gets. So yeah. I think it's like his filmmaker's way of trying to represent free thinking, free association.
Yes. That said, I figured out who did it in the literally the scene where he's like, "I'm gonna say who did it."
Oh, I figured.
Was like,
Marina and I figured it out when she takes them up to the garden and says, right. "I ripped up all the flowers after my daughter got engaged." We're like, she fucking did it.
Right. That's the thing. I felt so stupid not realizing it, because the reason I got it wasn't because of that. The reason I got it is because I realized she was the only character I think this was a mistake. She was the only character they didn't implicate, really, most of the movie.
Right, because she'd be I think it's one, you're right. It's probably a little dated, because I'm sure this is left over from the Agatha Christie story, but it does lean heavily on you not suspecting Kelly Riley simply because she's the grieving mother. And you're like, well, exactly. Obviously it's not her.
Right. And the fact that they don't give her anything, I realized too late. I was like, oh, of course it's her. Same with the kid, because there's a third mystery, which is who's blackmailing this person, which we learn later. And they don't give us too much time to think about it. But the kid, the whole time I was like, he did something.
I briefly suspected the kid.
Oh yeah, I thought about that and I was like, I don't think this movie's going to do that, because I just ultimately that's such a downer ending. So I was like, okay, the kid is up to something, and then the moment that blackmail happened, I was like, there it is. What could the kid have done that wasn't so egregious, right? That it would end with him in handcuffs, or getting murdered.
Yeah.
So it was just the kid had to have done something, because he's just a kid shifty as fuck. And he's also not really in the movie for any other reason. You know what I mean? Where it's he's sort of he's supposed to be kind of Kenneth Branagh, he kind of takes after him a little bit. There's that vibe where it's he's clearly too smart for his own good. But it was there needs to be something with this kid, right? And so that all made sense. We can walk through the movie some more, but my general feeling of this movie is, I mentioned The Nun. I have a couple observations. One, this is a better horror movie than The Nun. It's just better made, a better made horror movie than Nun.
Of course.
Yeah, but and it doesn't have any. Sorry,
there's intent behind it.
Yeah, it's a better ghost movie than The Nun, supernatural, and it has no ghosts in it. I actually do think so, because it ends ambiguously, right? There's this little idea of I don't know, maybe there was a ghost.
It's enough. It's enough to restore Poirot's faith, so that he starts doing his detective agency again.
Yeah, the idea at the beginning, and this one they really. He's just there is no God. I'm like, well, I mean, if you've been following, I wonder if you're gonna believe in God by the end of this.
Yeah. If you've been following the series, specifically the Kenneth Branagh trilogy thus far, it makes sense. This is where he'd be at after we saw him, and he's this
for sure.
shell-shocked dude from the war, and he's listen, I've been investigating murderers for decades. I have found no evidence of a benevolent creator.
It's just, I'm not saying it's bad. It's just it's very clear, right? He literally is I'm not doing this anymore. I also don't believe in God. He says there is no God. And that's at the beginning. It's that's the beginning of the arc. Here's the thing I love about these movies is that this is really hard to put into words because it seems like an insult. These movies are kind of aiming for the middle. They're a real these have... You know how when a movie's really good, the Revenant, let's say The Revenant.
Sure, that was a pull.
The Revenant is considered a good movie, right?
Is a good movie, yes, sure. Yeah. I will agree with you there.
Have you rewatched it?
I rewatched it not recently, but I have seen it more than once, yeah.
Oh, okay. But most people, you don't just throw on The Revenant, right? You don't just
you work
relax.
up to that, yeah.
And so you could argue that depending on how you're judging a movie, maybe a better movies are movies that you watch multiple times that are comfort, and that's what this is, right? This is aiming to be. It's not trying to be award-winning necessarily.
No, it's trying to be a good mystery.
Exactly, and it's like it's well shot and everything, but it's sort of designed that I'm like, man, I'm gonna watch this movie a bunch more times, because it goes down so easy. So like the idea that like his exposition, his arc and stuff is obvious. It's like it should be, right? Like,
and it's also woven into the premise, right? Because
Yeah.
he's our proxy, so he's going to be approaching the situation skeptically, like we are. And it's like, oh, because it's so neat because it begins with the premise where it's like his friend, who is an author, Tina Fey, is dragging him to this seance to debunk the seance, to debunk the medium. So
Yeah.
we're already coming at it from a point like, okay, let's fool Poirot. Let's see if he can figure out because we're all going to be looking at him, right? When all the spooky stuff happens, we're going to look at Poirot, and if he can't figure it out, then we know it's ghosts. So they use that on us. So it's like, it's not only like, it is a pretty clearly stated beginning of an arc, but it's also like, okay, so they know we're going to be following him. So also they know that they can, when they fuck with Poirot, they're going to be, that's like cutting our sails loose. Like we're going, oh shit, if Poirot's seeing ghosts, then we know we're in trouble.
Yeah, and they end in a good way with that, because you're like, early on he shows that Michelle Yeoh is a fraud.
It's fake, yeah,
but,
she's a fraud.
Yeah, he figures something out that she's doing. There's a guy hiding in the chimney with a remote control, but then like other things happen,
Right.
and he can explain it right away.
Right.
And
He says, I can't explain it right now, but I'll get to it. He has a lot of, he had fun chemistry with Tina Fey as this character. Like you could,
I'd love to see her back, honestly.
yeah, like
I
sort
really
of
liked her in
like
this.
a quasi adversarial, but not really. They're a little bit of frenemies, but not totally. They're still kind of a little bit friendly. It was neat. They had good chemistry. So they had several fun little exchanges with each other.
And she's not playing it too over the top comedy.
Not
like,
at all.
She's a comedian.
Not at all.
And so she's a little funny, but she knew to like this character is not that funny.
Appropriately funny. She plays the character. Like she's quite good in this actually. Like she's
acting.
She really does. She's not trying to be like, look at me. Like she's trying to disappear into this role.
Right, and it's hard, honestly. It must have been hard because Tina Fey I'm sure she's so rich that she doesn't have to do anything anymore. She did 30 Rock, made all her money, and she kind of vanished, right? Like I don't know if she vanished. Obviously,
well, she's been
not
pretty.
for,
I mean, she's been
quiet.
Kimmy Schmidt, and then she did. I think she does Girls 5 Ever, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay.
Never mind. I retract that. I think that show is in her orbit, but I don't know if she's necessarily the producer or anything. But
yeah,
she's been more behind the scenes because she started behind the scenes. She started as the head writer on SNL.
Exactly. She is a producer of Girls 5 Ever.
Oh, she is. Okay.
Eva. Girls 5 Eva.
That's right.
Yeah, that's what it felt like. Is she was apparently in Only Murders in the Building.
Like, oh yeah, that's right.
She was in that Maggie Moore movie. Like it seems like she's like acting is, like you said, it's not really the thing she does.
It seems like it's her secondary concern.
Yeah. And this is all to say that when she shows up in this, in my head, it's like, that's Liz Lemon. Like that. And so like, it's hard. Like that's a hard thing to do, is to show up like, hey, remember Liz Lemon? Here I am. And I am not her. And by the end of the movie, I was like, yeah, she isn't her.
No,
You're
totally
right,
different.
Tina Fey.
Yeah, she's playing a believable character from this time period.
Yeah, but it takes a moment, you know, because
not for me, because I didn't watch 30 Rock.
Okay.
I had the opposite experience where it took me 2 or 3 reverse shots to be like, that is Tina Fey. Like,
yeah, it's definitely different. But it is, yeah, it's having watched all of 30 Rock, it was like it's like fucking the equivalent of Seinfeld in this movie, right?
Or Duchovny.
Or Duchovny, yeah, where it's just like, I'm sorry,
that's
I don't see any. I honestly, Seinfeld's the better one for me because Seinfeld is such a loud, where it's like her in 30 Rock, it felt like she was playing herself the way Seinfeld was.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
That's also Seinfeld's not an actor, like
exactly,
famously.
But I guess that's what I mean is like, yeah, Tina Fey, like 30 Rock. The feeling is that she's playing a version of herself the way Seinfeld was.
Of course she is, yeah.
Right. So it's like it took a moment on that grounds where I was like, oh, she is an actor, because I genuinely didn't know. I was like, is she a comedian who, you know, produces stuff and writes? And watching this, I was like, okay, she can act too. That's awesome. Like, obviously she can act, but like,
Yeah.
you know, I didn't know she could act like more than just herself. But yeah, so she was great, and everybody's good in it.
Everybody's really good. I love that he can, and Brana's a big enough name that he can consistently get these full ensembles where like truly you can't really approach it from the meta. Like there was a meta joke about Mayor of Easttown, and this is only a minor spoiler, but like everybody I knew that was watching that show while it was on, that's the mystery series on HBO starring Kate Winslet. Right. So like one of the suspects is Guy Pearce. So you're like, and it's a sea of unknown actors pretty much, and Guy Pearce. So like the gag was like, like clearly the murderer, and minor spoiler, he's not. But like he ends up not really having much to do with the mystery at all. He just
is a red herring,
right? So they used his. That's a different sort of meta casting. But I like that Brana, because he knows coming into this that it's a locked room mystery. Essentially, all the suspects are going to be stuck in one place, and it's only going to be from this pool of people. But because he's a big enough name, and he's Brana, and people like working with him, he's able to consistently get these full ensembles where every single actor could be the murderer if you're playing it based on that like meta game of like, okay, apart from the detective, who are like the most famous actors? Okay, it's going to be one of them,
right? Yeah, most likely. Yeah, but like there's also that feeling of like, but you never know, because it could be the no name, because that's part that could
they
be
know
part
it.
of the
They
fun.
know it's mysteries.
Essentially, if it's a good mystery you're watching, essentially you're like, I can't base my decision on the casting. Right. Like you just know, you're like, okay, it's not going to be able to figure this out based on who's in it.
Clearly, Brana knows that because he's done it all 3 times.
Yes.
And I was just going to say it's funny in the way that mystery is sort of like a conversation with the audience in the way that horror is, because like they know all the games, so they're like trying to play the games that but slightly differently to fool you. I know all art is, you can say that about any type of film, but to me you really notice it more in those 2 genres specifically, where it's like, okay, you're sitting down and having a conversation with the filmmaker, because it's like, we both sit down at the table with the understanding that they are trying to outsmart you. So
out of all the genres, it's one of the most meta genres, right? Mm-hmm. Same with horror. Horror is like that too, where you're like, when is the thing going to happen, the killer?
That's what I said,
Yeah. Horror will do the mirror shots, for example, where they know that you are,
and they know that they know we know. It's all the jump scare stuff. Like they know we know all the tricks. So like, okay, we're gonna drag you through this jump scare. It was a thing we talked about with the Nun being like the one of the only good things that it does is it can really set up the jump scares.
Yeah, it was good at that.
Yeah, but anyway, we don't have to talk anymore about the Nun.
Yeah, and so. That is what I wanted to go back to, is the horror of it all, because going to this as a ghost movie, so we have the faith thing, right? And we have that Michelle Yeoh is clearly like fraudulent, and then they do like, ooh, but this is real. And so the movie has like kind of a thing to work with, which is like, do we really want to end the movie by being like, this psychic is right or this psychic is real? And they do a good job at saying like, no, this psychic is a fraud, but that doesn't mean ghosts aren't real.
Right.
And so they do this, like, I thought they did a really good job with, like, they have a couple actual jump scares, but they're not like they don't do the stupid noise. They don't do the, like, fright noise that the Nun does. And it's more trying to be creepy.
Surreal.
As opposed to, And so that's why I look at this and I'm like, I think this is, to me, this is the better version of a ghost movie than a lot of ghost movies. A lot of like Winchester, where you have to fucking have a Marvel fight.
It's directed by Kenneth Branagh and not whatever dickhead directed Winchester.
Right. What makes a good ghost movie good is subtlety.
Yes.
And it's weird how like there's a whole genre of horror that's like, we need a superhero battle at the end.
Yeah, where it's just loud as hell.
Right. Like a good version of this is the last shot of the Innkeepers, right? Where you're like, the last shot of the Innkeepers, for people who don't know, is so subtly includes the ghost that you might have to rewind it several times. And I love shit like that, where the point of a ghost in my from where my perspective on ghost movies is that they always have a light hand. They can't really do much.
It's got to be
a demon.
It's got to be, well, demon I'll give a little more leeway with, but like if the best ghost movies are it's stuff like Personal Shopper.
Yes.
Where it's you just have a scene where it's like you said, the lightest touch, but it fucks me up. And that's like Personal Shopper is like that.
And it's so much scarier and memorable. Yeah, Personal Shopper is a great example. But like for demons, like The Omen, where it's like Final Destination, where it's like, I don't need the physical manifestation.
No, unnecessary.
Yeah,
we don't need to see the fucking devil in The Omen.
Right. And so this is doing that, where there's literally one moment where it's possible that the ghost did something. And that's at the very, very end, when the mother turns around and seems to see the ghost and falls to her death. And they keep it ambiguous. And that to me is so much creepier than a movie, because this isn't actually I don't think he set out to be like, I'm going to make a scary movie.
No, it's just a gothic mystery. So it's like, it reminds me of like, I mean, not to be too topical, but I mean, like the kid's very pointedly and purposefully reading Edgar Allan Poe. It reminds me a little bit of like The Fall of the House of Usher, which I said that's topical because the trailer for that just came out.
Looks good.
Yeah.
Looks different than his others.
Yeah. But like, anyway, the point is where it's gothic and creepy and like you're in this bad place. Like it may not be, it's as haunted as it may not be like literally full of ghosts, but it's haunted. Like it's definitely haunted. Like this palazzo is haunted. They locked, like they begin the story by telling us that they locked a bunch of orphans with the plague in the basement and just left them there to die, and that's what's supposedly terrorizing the house. So it's like it's a bad place and you can feel it in the direction. So it's just this movie is not scary, to be clear, but it handles the creepiness and the bizarreness. Like it reminded me a little bit of Argento in some ways. Just in the surreal way that the quote unquote haunting is presented. And of course we realize later that part of that is because he's drugged, but it's also a stylistic choice to depict hauntings, which was popular in certain styles of movies like Argento, which is why it made me think of that. Anyway, it's just a movie that unsettles you.
So scary is relative. So I think this movie might be scary.
It might scare some people, but it's more of a mood. I wanted to be clear.
For sure. But there's also like the non-ghost stuff, like for example, the death of Michelle Yeoh.
Oh yeah.
Where
it looks like the paper craft.
See it. Yeah, it looks like and it's also, he does a thing where she snaps. She like lands and snaps in a way that's so abrupt that it looks almost supernatural. It's really unsettling in the sense that he, like, clearly that shadow, he was able to like really play with that shot, right? It was probably digital.
I'm sure it was.
And so the snap is so like weird and abrupt when she hits. And I really like, that was, I don't know, really cool to me. Like there's little filmmaking stuff like that. Yeah. Where it's really creepy. Like she gets thrown off this balcony. She doesn't fall that far. And
it's about 10 feet.
It's like, yeah. And she like slams onto this thing and gets impaled, which is like such a horror thing to happen. And it's nothing about it is technically supernatural, but it's shot in a way where it almost feels like, and that's the whole point. The point is that like the first assumption from people is like it's the ghost doing it, right?
Yeah, the ghosts
are
mad.
Like it looks like she was thrown onto it, and of course she wasn't. But like it's that stylistic choice that just makes the death feel more supernatural than it is, and like he does it throughout, where even the stuff where he's not drugged for it, and then of course at the end there's a question of how drugged he is.
Mm-hmm. They do a fun thing where like he's in the bathroom and the faucets won't come on, and then they do come on, and then he turns them off, and then the kid's like, you left the tap on, and they're back on again, and he turns them off. So like, oh, was he drugged and he just forgot to turn them on? Because a couple of scenes later he's in the basement with the fiance Max, and the tap doesn't work for Max either when he turns it on.
And it was right when he does the honey thing, and so you could make the connection
that it's the ghost trying to. Yep, it's the ghost wanting them to see that it's the honey.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
and then it also just connects the two.
Yeah.
Where it's like, oh yeah, he is drugged by the honey, and he's putting the honey on him, and he's talking about the honey. So like, you could subconsciously connect those things too, of like, because the information there is he smells the honey and says like, I don't recognize this type of honey.
Yeah, it doesn't smell like the one that she normally has. Yeah, it doesn't smell like wildflowers or something is what he says.
Yeah. Also, that there's a mirror scare in that sink, and that's a scare that I thought you did a good job with. Like, it's a very classic scare, a mirror scare. But I think the look of the ghost was good. She looked good. She looked creepy, but not like they were doing the strands of hair, the ring thing. But it still looked good. Like the framing of the shot. It's hard without like looking at it to like pick it apart of why it worked. And then I don't think, I mean, maybe I'm wrong, he doesn't do like a big horror jump sound. He does a sound, but it worked really well.
It's like more Brana's reaction, and then he turns around. It's
so hard to dissect it without thinking, but like for me, a bad jump scare is the one that makes me literally jump in my seat and just go, ugh. You know, like, well, you just made my nerves jump.
I think I figured it out, Dave. I think I figured it out real quick. We don't expect it when it happens. We're not expecting it when it happens.
Yeah, I didn't expect it in this movie for sure.
Because he's not setting it up like that, and it's not framed that way. He just happens to look, boom, there's the ghost there.
So what I was getting at is the good type of jump scare. This is why I'm trying to figure this out. I don't tend to jump. I tend to go like, ooh, like, oh, yeah, like it's that. And so like, that's interesting to me because like, it is a surprise, but like, why didn't it make me leap out of my seat and then get mad? And I think part of it is noise, because the noise, whenever they just do the shitty noise, they know no matter what, they can just make you jump because you think, I don't know, a gun is being fired near you or something. Your body is just in survival mode. And so, like, I really want to rewatch the scene and kind of figure it out. Like, what was it that made that work when so many other mirror shots don't? And you're right. One of the reasons is that I didn't think this movie was going to have anything resembling. Like, that was the thing, is I knew it wasn't supernatural. And the moment they did that, I honestly was like, I did not expect the movie to have any ghosts at all. Like, anything. And so that's the moment where you're like, oh, okay, there's like a gas leak or something. But like that was the first actual moment, right, where something supernatural seeming happens.
Not the first moment, but that's the first time you see a ghost, quote unquote.
Right.
There's another one with another mirror later, the bigger mirror, where he looks into it and he sees the girl and she punches through the glass from the other side, but it's shot. I feel like it was a composite because it's shot in a way that looks really surreal and it didn't really look that digital. It looked like really kind of weird, and like it was kind of like almost like a push zoom, but from the other direction. It was a shot that was like jarring and assembled oddly, and like it just had this crazy effect when you saw it. That was technically a jump scare, but it wasn't one that was like, ah! It was more like it's like,
I gotta tell you, Tom.
Yeah.
I had to take a leak watching this movie.
Oh, so you probably missed that one.
I know what the scene I missed.
So you missed
was.
that one. Okay.
Yeah, I'm excited to watch this again. I'm not going to go to the theater because it's. Yeah. I mean, I go to the theater to see this. It's worth seeing in the theater. But now that I've seen it, I'm like, I can't wait to watch this at home on streaming and just like relax and watch it.
It's hard to describe, but it's like most of the. It's sort of like The Shining in the way that most of what's creepy about this movie is the direction and the way it's shot.
Yeah, and it's just there's like in the trailer there's a shot of him with like a cross behind him and it looks like the opening credits to The Omen, like it's the red lights. It's shit like that where the environment is it's like real good creepy vibes.
Yeah, it's the spookiest goddamn house.
Yeah, the scares are for the most part like very legit and very well crafted because he's a good director.
And he just does things that are like, because the premise is they're coming here for the seance because Kelly Riley's daughter, who is grown at this time, she's an adult, she had been engaged, and then the engagement got broke off, and then she fell ill and supposedly killed herself by jumping into the canal. But what they say happened is that she was laid up sick in bed and the ghost slowly drove her mad. So there's this theme already of being driven insane, of madness, specifically being driven mad. And then so he does these repeated motifs of things like the mirror shots where they're jump scares, but they're not filmed like that. They're filmed in a much more bizarre way. And he keeps hearing somebody singing, and they never resolve that. He just keeps hearing somebody singing. And then, he sees the little girl later and talks to her, and then when he turns back around, she's gone. And then we see later that it's the younger version of the woman that died. Right. So you could infer that, but of course you also notice when he sees that picture, you notice that, we've seen those pictures everywhere. They're literally all throughout the house. So there's this question in your mind of, okay, did he really see this ghost, or has he just seen her picture all over the house? Because we definitely have, and he's high, so he's just imagining he's talking to her. But it's stuff like that where it never does. It's playing around with. And when the storm picks up, they can't leave the house because the canal, the waters are too bad. So they're stuck basically until the cops can show up. And then at one point, this log is this breaker log is smashing against the house, and it's this pounding, and this pounding just continues for several minutes as they go down to this spooky ass basement and stuff. And it never really escalates into anything. It's just you have a section of this movie that is they're doing something creepy, and just in the background for the entire time is this pounding relentlessly. Yeah. And it keeps doing shit like that, like those motifs, like we said, with the apples and the bees, where you're at one point, you're watching this movie, you're like, am I fucking going nuts? Am I losing my mind?
Right, it's a descent into madness that's happening to him as well.
Exactly, it's what's happening to Perot.
I believe,
We're
doesn't the little kid says, you heard it, didn't you?
Yeah.
And so there's this implication that the little kid hears ghosts. Mm-hmm. But you could also
is it because he's eating the honey there, or is
it because he knows about what happened?
Or is he because he already
he knows that he's been drugged?
He already knows. He already knows the solution is. But at the end of the movie, he does believe that there are ghosts there, and he speaks to them.
Yes. He might just be eating that honey. And then at the end I liked the lightning shot where she's in the background floating, and that's near the after he's already said this is what has been happening.
We know the solution, at this point, and
yeah, but you kind of think it's wearing off at that point. So again, the ghost is ambiguous throughout, and if you this is more of a meta thing. You have to just accept that this is the reality in this movie. But there's, of course, the fact that there isn't any hallucinogenic drug that'll make you see people and interact with them. No, and you sort of have to just accept that that's a thing in this universe. Yeah. But if you want to get real, gritty, or not gritty, but nitpicky, you could say there's obviously ghosts because drugs don't do that. So has to be ghosts.
Right, you usually have to do it in concert with something. I assumed, and they don't ever really reveal it, but this is what I assumed was happening, because they also had the repeated motif of the papercraft show that the kids get shown at the beginning at the Palazzo. When the kids are told the ghost story about all the dead kids that are locked in the basement with the plague, they're told this by this fucking creepy ass Harlequin man who does a papercraft show for them behind a sheet, which is cool and very impressive, but also he was really creepy. Anyway, so I assumed that she was drugging her and also showing her the papercraft shows, right, to make her think that she was being terrorized by the ghosts. But I think the reveal is that Kelly Riley was just drugging her. She wasn't actually putting on a ghost puppet show or anything for her to make her. She wasn't also gaslighting her on top of poisoning her, is what I'm saying. So, in order to see things like this, normally you have to be drugged and also gaslit. You can't. You won't just see pink elephants.
So I definitely want to talk about the actual story of what happened, because that's another layer of horror, and it's very very gothic horror. So what we learn, as people can probably tell, I mean, I hope you guys have watched it.
Right, because we're just talking about the filmmaking and not going through the plot.
But Kelly Riley had been slowly drugging her daughter because she was possessive of her.
Yeah.
And she was giving her these little spoonfuls of honey in her tea that had the hallucinogen in it. And what I really love, the part that makes it really cool, is that the help one night, so she has this guilt where she said, like, the night that I watched her was the night that she killed herself. But the
maid
extra
you're
thing we
talking
learn,
about?
the maid, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, the housekeeper,
extra thing,
really.
The housekeeper. The next thing we learn is that also that night, that girl woke up and she was having trouble. So the housekeeper gave her a bunch of honey, not knowing that she was essentially killing her.
Yeah.
And so, like, not only is it that the mother was slowly killing her, but like this housekeeper now has to live with the fact that she actually was the one who physically killed her.
I think it
she
wasn't...
didn't know, obviously.
Yeah. I think it was like Kelly Riley. I think the implication, she says as much. Whether or not you believe her is up to you, but she didn't plan to kill her daughter. She wanted to make her daughter dependent on her again.
Exactly.
Because that's what she wanted.
And so she found her dead body because the housekeeper
accidentally OD'd her. She's like, oh shit. Excuse me. So she throws her off the balcony into the canal, and it's like she killed herself. The ghost drove her crazy.
Yeah, and so like it's a really it's like classic gothic horror,
classic.
Which I imagine
Agatha Christie and Sherlock Holmes. This is also a thing that happens in Sherlock Holmes stories.
Oh yeah, and Poe. Like it just has all the vibes of those classic horror. Which is like someone, being driven to madness, someone poisoning someone else without even knowing it.
I'll never forget when I explained to you the solution to murders on the Rue Morgue. It's like this horrible series of slasher murders.
Well,
it's a monkey with a razor blade.
Yeah, that's the least elegant one. That's just fucking madness.
That's just Poe being high as shit and writing something.
Oh yeah, that's the Stephen King cocaine era.
Hold on. What if you taught a monkey how to shave, right? What if you had like a barbershop and you were trying to teach a monkey how to shave, but then like the monkey got free? Fuck it, I'm writing it.
Yeah, it really is his maximum overdrive, where you look back at Poe and you're like, okay, so it wasn't like a genius. All right, so he's just like another dipshit horror writer.
Right.
I got it.
He was trying to make rent that month.
Yeah, exactly.
What about a monkey?
So funny. Yeah. It's hard because like that question of like when I talked about this movie, it's aiming for the middle. It's hard to think of anything like
well, it's
wrong with the movie.
No, it's nothing. I know what you're meaning. I know what you mean. Let me see if I can phrase it a little bit more elegantly. This movie is content to be a mid-budget movie. Like it's not
murder mystery.
Yes, it doesn't have any aspirations beyond what it clearly is. Like it's not trying to go for any awards. It's not trying to be a big spectacle. It didn't cram it full of jokes. It's not trying to be a 4-quadrant blockbuster or anything like that. Or it's
also not trying to be like too meaningful, right? You're not going to weep during this. You're not going to be like, wow, what a good observation about life. It's not trying to stand out in any way. It's just really fucking... It's like, we're going to make a gothic murder mystery that's creepy, and then it's so well executed.
Right. It's just...
that it just nails it. And I really do think, like, those other ones he did, they're good, but this kind of blows them out of the water.
This is far and away the best of the ones he's done so far.
Yes.
It's... I think it's... I mean, it all goes down to what the ultimate goal of a film should be, right? It's a good story well told.
Exactly. And it's just really good craftsmanship and just like a really... This is the best version of this movie that
I think so, yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. I hope he keeps churning these out, man.
God, yeah, man. And here's the thing. I don't think I'll like the other ones as good because I don't think he'll do horror for everyone because why would he? Maybe he'll do one that's like more zany. Maybe he'll start swapping genres a little bit. But like, I like that we have these two, right? I like that we got Ryan Johnson over there who's playing the metagame and doing these ones that like undercut a lot of expectations of murder mysteries where it often kind of spoils what you want it to be.
Yeah, I still don't really like the first Knives Out. The second one I really enjoyed, but the first one I'm still not really that into.
Right, but I do like that he's subverting the genre constantly.
Yeah, he's trying.
And then I like that we have Kenneth Branagh over here who's like, I'm not going to subvert shit. I'm not going to try to be like quirky about this. I'm just going to do it really fucking well.
Right. It's like we haven't seen it yet, obviously. But like, it's like what James Gunn is telling everybody he's doing with Superman, where it's like we had 15 years of Zack Snyder doing the deconstruction of the DC universe. And it's like, well, shouldn't we just have the DC universe first? Like, can't we just have we should probably just start with like regular Superman, right?
Right. Clark Kent.
Like the
Superman,
wholesome Superman, so that we then have something to deconstruct, right? Like the original text still needs to be preserved somehow. It can't all be deconstruction. So yeah, I really do, like I said, a good story well told. Sometimes, not sometimes, all of the time, that's all it needs to be. So yeah, I
would argue it depends. Like if someone was like, I'm going to do Peter Pan, and I'd be like, no, don't do that. Like,
well, that's where the well told comes in. You have to figure out a way to tell it that's going to actually be interesting.
Well, if you told it like, well, I guess what I mean is if you did a really solid Peter Pan movie, it'd be like, that's cool, man. We put it on the pile.
We're kind of done with Peter Pan.
Yeah. But yeah, I know what you're saying, which is like, yeah, sometimes
you just need to do the thing, like what it is. And he found ways to. It's not confining. It's not like because this is, like I said, this is our favorite of the three. His direction is the best in this one, so it's not like this is artistically limited. It's just, I don't know. I feel like we're just beating the same point over the head.
Well, I think we got really frustrated with Knives Out, and one of the reasons was because it was the meta thing, but also I believe the timing of that movie. Correct me if I'm wrong. Had he done Murder on the Orient Express yet?
Branagh,
when Knives Out came out? Okay. Yeah, I think what it was is after that, it was like, oh yeah, Murder Mysteries.
Murder Mysteries are back. Yeah, let's do it.
Knives Out was like, well, it's like the Superman thing, right? They were like, we're actually going to subvert it. And it was like, damn it, I don't need it subverted right now.
Right. I want a murder mystery. Yeah, please.
Yeah. And I got to watch Poker Face. I watched The Killing and True Detective. Like, we've gotten it, but they often are very gritty. And they're like more like detective shows, you know?
Well, there's a difference, right? There's a difference between
police detective shows, I should say.
True Detective is more of a procedural. Because it's more about the investigation. It is a mystery, but like this is a whodunit, which is a specific type of mystery.
I think there's still room for another whodunit series. Maybe the public disagrees. I mean, this didn't beat The Nun, and I like that's part of why I'm like, I wish it did, because I want this genre.
It's still, I mean, it was kind of neck and neck. It still did pretty well.
It's doing, and I'm sure the budget. I'm sure
they didn't make it for much. Yeah, it's like nice that like a serious movie for adults is doing well, or doing decently, you know.
Yeah, it cost about $40 million, and it's only made 60. But like, it's just at this point, I think they know. They're like, this is how much these make, right? Yeah. I'm sure they figured it out. I want this plant to get watered some more. Like, I want more fucking murder mystery genre movies out there. I'm fine.
He's got a good series called Wallander, if you want to watch that. Where there's
Branagh?
Branagh, yeah, he plays like a Scandinavian detective. I think there's a couple of seasons of it.
Oh, good for him.
But like, what's his name? Warboy the Great.
Warboy the Great.
Nicholas Hoult. He's in season 1 of Wallander with Branagh. But yeah, so like, Branagh's got some whodunits out there that are pretty decent.
Yeah, I think even if you don't like a whodunit, like this is again like the only thing I'd imagine, the fact that there was a horror I think threw people off. I saw very funny, and this is like just one random person, so. But I saw a very funny like a Reddit post of someone who's like, I'm trying to think of this movie, and they were describing this movie, the trailer. And someone was like, it's A Haunting in Venice. It's the new like Kenneth Branagh, and the guy replied like, no, it's not that.
That's the Kids in the Hall sketch. Or
Yeah.
the big van that takes people to the
Yeah,
hospital. You mean
exactly.
the ambulance? No.
No. Yeah, and they were like, no, this is like a horror movie, and it's like, no, yeah, he's doing a horror movie this time. And the point being that, like, I think some people are going to go into this movie thinking they're about to walk into a horror movie. I think, and so I think if you,
My theater was
gonna be-
packed, and it was packed
That's cool.
full of respectively silent adults.
Awesome. Yeah, that was my fear of this movie, is that there's someone going in thinking they're going to watch The fucking Nun, and then they're like, what is this? What the fuck is this? There's nothing. But like, I really do think this is the scarier version of a ghost movie. Period.
Well, considering
Like,
The Nun didn't scare me at all, and this one,
Yeah,
this one
I
was
can't
a
compare
little
it to The
unsettling.
Nun.
But like,
honestly, here's what I'll say. I find this more unsettling than like The Conjuring. Like, that's what I mean, is like not just The Nun, because The Nun is a terrible metric, but what I mean is I think this is a more effective ghost movie than a lot of ghost movies out there, modern at least, because of the subtleties, because it might not even have ghosts in it. Like the idea of a ghost, that's like The Shining. A ghost is like a memory, right?
Mm-hmm.
I love the idea that a ghost might not even be a physical entity. It's just like this house is cursed in
it's
some way.
vibes. Yeah, you don't see the ghost, but like,
And it's
there.
not trying to like jump scare you. It's just
no, it's vibes.
creepy.
Yep.
Yeah, it's vibes, bro. Vibes. Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's good.
Because again, how many people in history have been killed by a ghost?
Yeah, only like 6.
Only so few.
Yeah. They're out there.
They haven't
but,
haven't done a follow-up to that coffee table book yet. People
Yeah.
killed by ghosts, volume 1. We're still waiting on volume 2.
Yeah, well, building the list.
Yeah, it's just funny
Get
to
that
me
list.
that that's what we do. We take like,
Well, listen, you could argue that it's kind of like
I'm being funny now.
Well, it's kind of like The Best Assassin, right? Who's the best assassin? We wouldn't know, right? Because so maybe people are killed by ghosts every day,
All the
but
time.
it's like, yeah, ghosts are just so sneaky. Kennedy shot by a ghost, possibly. We don't know.
I would love it if it was something like, if it was like just a well-kept secret in the medical field, where like every single person who is found dead has the most horrible, terrified look frozen on their face.
The Ring. They're all the Ring.
Yeah, they're all just the Ring death mask on their face. So like every medical professional knows that you see ghosts in the moment before your death, but they're just not telling us.
Yeah. They're like, what's the point in telling people that? It's just gonna.
Oh, you'll
it's
find
gonna
out
be
soon enough.
really, Yeah, it's just gonna be a real bummer for anybody who finds that out. So, one final thing.
Sure.
It's kind of amazing to me. Watching this movie, it is, and honestly, watching Death on the Nile, Orient Express, it is. He directed Artemis Fowl, Tom.
He did, Dave. He did.
That's incredible to me, because what it really means is that, like, everybody has their fucking monkey with a razor. Don't they?
he's got a few movies that are bad. He's
But
directed
that's
a few
one where it's
stinkers.
What an incredible thing to direct.
Artemis
While also
Fowl.
directing these movies. That's just amazing to me. Congratulations.
I really do wonder
both
how
of
much of
those.
because I know Artemis Fowl was like butchered and cut up and recut and reshot to hell, and because
Yeah.
they kept changing their minds about what kind of franchise they wanted it to be. Like I know all the
Right.
Josh Gad stuff was reshoots, like his narration, that was all reshoots.
Yeah, I'm guessing a lot of it was Kenneth Branagh
Colin
going,
Farrell
like,
was a
fuck it.
reshoot.
Yeah, there's probably a lot of fuck it. A lot of fuck it. You know what I really want to watch again? Because I saw this as a kid and I haven't seen it since, is Dead Again, which I always forget is he directed it as well. And that I remember being really fucking creepy. But then again, I saw it as a kid. So
And yeah, I can't even remember if I've seen it. It's one that I would. I remember the VHS in the video store. I don't know if I ever watched it.
I believe so. Again, I haven't seen it since I was a fucking kid. From what I recall, it's kind of a murder mystery where there's reincarnation.
Ooh,
like
sweet.
the people are remembering their past lives. And And I think there's like murder involved, but I might not even be right there. I just know that it was like kind of a creepy thriller from like it's a mystery. I know that, and it's about past lives. Yeah, I gotta watch that one. It's I bet that's a fun movie. So everybody check out Dead Again.
I'm gonna have to now.
All
right.
And yeah, I don't know.
We're talking about other films now, so I think we're...
Yeah, so see this, Artemis Fowl.
And Dead Again.
Yeah, that Frankenstein he did.
I love that Frankenstein, man.
Is that the one? That is the one with De Niro jumping out a window, isn't it? Yeah, so
within a 5-second span, he rips someone's heart out, throws it in a fireplace, and dives through the window, like Obi-Wan in Attack of the Clones.
He really makes some movies, huh?
Frankenstein is great, man. That movie is bug fuck crazy.
It really
Like,
is.
if you want to talk about like his directing in this movie, trying to make it's like being surreal and bizarre, that's Frankenstein from beginning to end.
I just love how subtle he can be, and then how not
And how
subtle he can
loud
be.
Frankenstein is. Watch
really
Frankenstein.
funny.
Watch Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, directed by Kenneth Branagh. It is fucking nuts.
Watch that the day you're listening to this.
You will be shocked. It might be more shocking than Artemis Fowl.
Yeah, it might be. And Artemis Fowl has a mulch diggum, so...
Artemis Fowl has Josh Gad shitting dirt through his underpants like a cannon, like a shotgun
like a wood
blast
chipper
from his
like
ass.
a wood chipper.
Yeah, like a wood chipper.
You want to stick Steve Buscemi through that fucking thing. Oh. All right.
All right. That's enough.
Are we good?
Yeah, I think so.
All right. Listen, folks. We have a Patreon. Patreon.com/GamefulyUnemployed. You go in there. You pay $5 a month. You get access to all our podcasts. Tom and Jeff Watch Batman. Fox Mulder's a Maniac, Star Trek: The Next Futurama, Spiel Boys. We just wrapped, Tom and Jeff, you guys, I just finished your Flash ones. That was great.
Ooh, thank you.
With Adam Todd Brown.
It was quite fun.
Yeah, we watch movies every Friday night with our patrons as well. We've watched Frankenstein. That's for fucking sure. And we've watched Artemis Fowl. We watched all the classics. That's really selling it. So check it out.
Watch The Gingerbread Man, too.
Yeah.
It's a '98 thriller that he not the Gary Busey one.
No,
there was a thriller that Branagh made, I think in '98, called The Gingerbread Man. Anyway, we also have a store. Head over to GameplayUnemployed.com, where you can find a link to our Teespring store, where we have all kinds of cool original artwork and designs. You can get t-shirts, mugs, stickers, posters, all sorts of things. So slap your Haunted in Venice peepers onto that.
Yeah, get all up in it.
All up in it.
Impale yourself on us.
Nah, don't do that. Don't do that.
Do it.
Don't do that. Wait for the ghosts to do that for you.
Yeah, watch out for ghosts.
Anger some ghosts, and then wait and see what happens.
Yeah, go to a graveyard.
Could
Just
be
start
nothing.
saying what's on your mind.
Could be nothing. Yeah.
Could be nothing.
Go to a graveyard and read some poetry. See what happens.
Do it.
They like it.
They like it. No one else will, like humans, because that's some edgelord shit.
Yes.